IPMNation.com.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Welcome. I've got to tell you, I love the sound of that gong. It just goes and goes and goes. Welcome to the #1 rated show here, as I said, on IPMNation.com, episode 281 of the Gong Heard Round the World. You're in to All Natural Being, broadcast as it happens here on IPM Nation and Facebook for Fly on the Wall video. But it's always live from the Outpost Studios here in Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcasts on iTunes and iHeartRadio. And we'll get a chance a little bit later to talk about our new app, both Android and iPhone. We've got that going. Greetings wherever you are, here in the garden of the mortals, the labyrinth of life itself, your shot at running the table. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of your list, putting your primal scream front and center in your life, and saying the heck with anyone that doesn't want it there. But you got to ask yourself, if they're not empowered by your primal scream, what are they doing in your life anyways? We're here to reinstall and reinstate the true wit and wisdom of your inner whisper. We believe it's time to reboot your robust, to find your ferocious, to out-brutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it this evening, I want to say hello to my friends here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, the UK, those in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Sweden, Peru, Israel, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands. To those joining us from all over the globe, it really is great to have you here with us. And I am fired up, as I am every day, to be driving your bandwagon, to be your biggest fan, to be avidly you, to be riding shotgun. So let me ask you, are you tired of being institutionalized by the intentions of another, convicted by the constructs of another, remanded to a prison of rhetoric, theirs or yours? That's why it's time to mortal up. Remember Coleridge's rhyme of the ancient mariner? Day after day, we stuck nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. What are we stuck? What are we waiting for? So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. As I said earlier, I want to mention this only because I'll forget if I don't, but I'm very, very fortunate to be involved in the initial stages with my good friend Henry and a good friend of his, actually his brother Wayne, Noel, involved in the beginning stages of building an app, both an Android and an iPhone iPad app for All Natural Being. So as we move forward into the development stages, and Wayne is just so smart, it's unbelievable. It's like, yeah, I had an hour, so what would you do, Wayne? Well, I built you an app. Unbelievable guy, just talent that knows no end. But what I would love to do is, and maybe now we won't take up the whole show about it, but are there things that you would like to see in either an Android or an iPhone or an iPad app? And you go, oh, well, if All Natural Being had an app, I think it should have this. So I was thinking, maybe we put in the early morning meme, the good night sound bite. We can put in some of the things. Maybe we put in a link to the videos. We'll put in a link to YouTube. We'll put in a link to iHeartRadio, maybe over to SoundCloud. We could put in, you tell me. That's what I'm interested in. If we could talk about that a little bit this evening, in and amongst the different things we'll talk about. What would you like to see in an app? Because I have a blank card and a bunch of pens. So I'll take very copious notes because I'd like this to be designed. I like it from the outset to be something that we'd all be fired up about. So if there's something that you're thinking going, oh, yeah, that would be great. We should absolutely put that in the app. I can tell you that we're very interested in hearing what you think and even more interested in making sure that what you want in that app makes it into the app. So a special thanks to Henry Noel, a special thanks to his brother Wayne Noel, and the brilliance between these two. And I was just stunned. Wayne goes, I had an hour, actually like 55 minutes. I was bored. So Wayne, what'd you do? Well, I created an app. So just a really bright guy. And quote of the day, that would be a good one. All right, let me do this since we're already into the thread. Let me jump over. John, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Marcellus, thank you so very much for joining us here on the All Natural Being. Kelly, thank you for joining us. Marcellus, good evening to you as well, brother. John says, hello, wonderful people. Hope you're having a great day. John, thank you so much, not only for calling in last evening, but all the times, all the different insightful things that you give us to think about here in the thread. Thank you very much. Kelly, thank you for joining us, and good evening to you as well. Brother Wallman, thank you for watching. Quote of the day. John, I like that. Maybe we will do that. Henry, I was just talking about you. Good evening, Henry. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We talked a little bit about this evening about if we were going to have an app, what would it look like? And as John said, quote of the day, right? We'd have the early morning meme, the good night soundbite, maybe an overall quote of the day that we could put in there. The rhyme of the ancient mariners. That's just like a painted ship upon a painted ocean. It makes you think, what are we waiting for? Why are we stuck in quicksand? Right? Why do we let these walking, talking Venus flytraps in our life derail what it is that we think is our destiny? Why not put your heart's highest priority top of your list? That's all I'm asking. Why not? Why not have your primal scream front and center in your life? Why let anyone squelch that? Why give anyone your remote? Why get played like a marionette? Why get played like a hand puppet? Hello, humans. For the moment, thank you very much. I like that. Which reminds me, maybe this evening we'll talk about the difference between human nature and human potential. But I also want to give out our phone number. Don't forget, it's toll-free, 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BU. I'll put up a little visual here in case anyone forgets. Toll-free, 833-462-3968. Well, thank you, Marcellus, very much. Wes, thank you for joining us. Welcome. I would like to think any friend of Marcellus is a friend of our show, so thank you very much. At the very least, a friend of mine. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. And I would love your input. What is it that we could put in an app? All right, so I don't want the show to be all about this app and what we're going to do, but I really would like some input as to what you think you'd really like to see. Oh, and it's going to be free, by the way, so it's not like me going, oh, you should tell me what you want in this app, and then we'll turn around and go, oh, for $49.95? No, so it's going to be an app absolutely free to All Natural Being listeners. So we'd like to know what it is that you'd like to have incorporated into that app. All right. Also, don't forget, 833-GO-BU, 833-462-3968. The question this evening that we're kicking around is that what's holding you back? And we don't have to be terribly philosophical about it. We can just be to the point. What's holding you back? Responsibility, finances, perception that maybe you don't have the natural resources that you'd need to pull it off. What is it that holds you back in life? And if you one morning woke up and found that you had it, thank you very much. If you woke up one morning and found that you had those very things that you think you lack, what would you do? Thank you, John, very much. 833-462-3968. 833-GO-BU. What is it specifically that you think you're lacking in life? And if you woke up and you found out you have all these natural resources, that you really do have a potential just this side of infinity, and that you just decide today is not going to be the day I'll let anyone squelch that potential. Today is not going to be the day that I'm going to let anyone talk down to the concept of me putting my heart's highest priority top of my list. How would you act? How would you respond? What would you do? So if you did wake up one morning and you go, you know what, when it comes to natural resources, I do have a good bit of grit. I do have a good bit of agility. And I got some stamina. Maybe I'm not going to run an ultramarathon anytime soon, but I've got some stamina. I can make that work. And then ultimately, do you think the things that are holding us back from putting our hearts highest priority top of the list? Is it fear? Is it apathy? Is it just a general sense of blah? Brother Wallman, a cone generator. Push a button when you're stuck, angry, anxious, etc., and it will generate. Wow, that's a great idea, a phrase to help you snap out of the current hurdle. Candace, good evening. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. You know, when I hear you say that, what I was thinking was like grit to go was one of the topics that we were thinking about. Grit to go. I know they said Portable Brian was another one that they were fired up about, but grit to go, right? Where you're just involved in a particular situation. And as he says, a cone generator, push a button when you're stuck, angry, anxious, etc., and it will generate a phrase. Well, it's like a portable grit to go. Whenever you're involved in a situation, you would hit this app, and it would give you. I love that. Thank you very much. What a great idea. Maybe we could include that in. I'll have to see exactly how that works. And if anyone has any ideas, or maybe what we'll do is we'll just put some random cones in, right? Some random thoughts, some quotes. I like quotes. Some random things that you could do that in any particular situation you would come in. Oh, you know what? When you think of it's almost like our spin to win wheel, right? Spin to win wisdom. If you think to yourself, the cone generator would be like, you just give it a spin. It's like, you know what? I'm liking that idea more and more. And then there it goes. It ends up. That's what the cone is going to be for that particular moment and all the time. I really like that idea. Brother Wellman, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But now let's get back to the topic at hand. What is it that holds you back? Because imagine just for a moment that you have everything that you could possibly need. You have all the natural resources. You have your grit, the agility, the stamina. You have it all. But you're keeping it in check for some reason. What could that reason be? What is the reason that you keep yourself in check? What is the reason that you trap your creativity? What is the reason that you trap your inner genius? And what is the reason that you've decided not to let him or her out? All right, let's go ahead and take a call. Here we go. Good evening. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who is this, please?
Hey, big man. This is Henry.
Hey, Henry. How are you, sir?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Well, you know, we were talking about it, and Marcellus just said we could kind of have like an old magic 8-ball. Remember those things where you would turn and they would pop up and give you little sayings or little things? And Brother Wallman said,
wisdom sayings, yes.
Yeah, one of the wisdom sayings. He was saying, well, what if you had a cone generator? I was busy telling everybody about Wayne, and just, you know, we were sitting around. And he goes, I had 45 minutes to kill, so I made a nap. You know, that kind of brilliance. I just don't get it, right? It just escapes me. So I just ask people, hey, Rita, how are you? It's good to see your smile pop up as well, my friend. Hey, I've got a little something for you. It's going to be coming in the mail here in the next few days. Rita, just so you know, you'll know exactly what it is. When you open it, you're going to go, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So thank you so very much. Miss seeing you this morning when we were out and about running around. But thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. So, Henry, what are you up to? We're talking this evening about why it is we decide not to tap into our natural resources, right? It's not necessarily that we're missing something. Maybe we've just turned our backs on it. We turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to our natural resources. What do you think about that as a concept?
Wow. You know, that's an interesting take on it. I think there's so many elements involved in, you know, why we're so afraid to let our all-natural being out. I think part of it is we simply don't know we have it, or we don't have a clue what it might be, because we have really done everything we can to hide it and to keep it suppressed. And I think that's a large reason why the sensitivity is still out there now, why it's so prevalent. It's always been out there, but it's really prevalent now. I think that may be part of it. It's just so convoluted in its nature that you can't just put a single pinpoint on exactly what it would be. But there are so many things out there that really do affect our all natural being.
And it's interesting that you started off by saying the word fear. And maybe that is, if we were going to try, Henry, to put a pinpoint on it, maybe you're right. There are different types of fears or phobias. Afraid of what would happen if we exercised our all-natural being. Afraid of what would happen if we exercised our wild at the core, right? Our primal scream. Maybe in the end it all comes back to fear.
Yeah, I mean, how many people have you come across that are simply they're fearful of success, whatever that defines as.
Sure.
They're simply afraid to succeed.
And they had to learn that somewhere. That fear of, is it just a fear of, do you think people fear that they'll be ostracized if they appear to succeed where others aren't? This whole thing about all you have to do is show up, you get a trophy, you get a ribbon, the first 25 places get ribbons or this or that. Do you think a sense of that fear inculcated early on, ingrained early on, is that you don't want to show somebody else up, so it's better to always be a wallflower, better always to keep your heart in the junk drawer, better always to hang back than to succeed, and then you don't feel like you're putting someone else down. You think a part of it is that?
I think that whole thing about everybody wins, nobody loses as a result of that. Exactly. It's that we have a system that educates and does things for a specific group of people. Linear, analytical. These are the people that actually succeed on being able to take tests and be able to perform and do well on these exams. And the kids that aren't, and I'm one of those kids that just couldn't do well on exams because I didn't buy into this stuff. It just didn't seem to make sense to me that it was important to spend my time studying for a test when I would rather have learned about history or science or math. And it's and then throw in that we are shamed and guilted into a whole lot of our actions, things that we do, and we're belittled and criticized routinely for these things because we don't have the sympathy for the kids who can't perform. Instead of changing the environment or the systems to allow everyone a fair chance to excel at the things that they're best at, we just have to accommodate everybody, and it's just not the way to go.
And Henry, I don't know if you can see the thread, but John says tonight, manufactured fear, guilt, shame, and hate, unnatural behavior stemming from chasing unnatural manufactured desires. Well, isn't that interesting? When you think about a desire, you think, I'm going to be a human getting. I'm going to get a carrot on the end of the stick. That's a manufactured desire, right? That, I need this in order to feel complete. I need this in order to feel whole. Maybe I need this in order to feel special. So that's a great point, John, to say that it's manufactured. What do you think, Henry?
Absolutely right, John. I think that is spot on because it is. I mean, when you really look at who we are, it has all been manufactured. We really have no clue who we are. We know who our parents say we are or what they taught us to be. We know what our teachers say we are from what they taught us to be. We know what our religious leaders and our political leaders say we are based on what they teach us.
Sure.
But nowhere in there have we ever been given a chance to learn who we are and what we like and what we want. None of that's been allowed. And
Henry, I don't know if you can see the thread, so let me read you what Kelly has to say. It's fear of approval and not fitting into expectations. I absolutely love that, which makes me think that if we could distill all of this down, as Mr. Wallman says, I was in Asheville where I could easily be my natural self as there were so many others doing the same thing. Having peers helps. I could see that. And a part of having that peers help, I think, to Kelly's point, is that here's where I think everyone just wants a hug. Now, I'm not suggesting that you just hug the one you're with. Not that kind of hug. But I'm saying that I think Kelly's onto something, Henry, where everyone wants approval. Everyone just wants to be embraced. Everyone wants to feel like they fit in. And I would argue that fitting in is an unconscious, at least a subconscious, recognition of you and the wave are one. I and the Father are one, right? Quantum physics or a Catholic religion, however you want to look at it. You are one of the wave. Save the collapse of the wave function, you wouldn't be here. So maybe that's it. Let me say quick hello, Henry, before you answer to Philip. Philip, thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. But maybe that's it. And as Brother Wallman was saying, you get to the point where it's the natural self as there were so many others doing the same thing. Then that's kind of like what Kelly's talking about, I think, in terms of the approval. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, and very well put, both Vaso and Kelly. But we have to remember also that just because we seem to fit in doesn't mean that we're right. I mean, it doesn't mean that that's the way it is, or that's who our real, or what our real all-natural being is about.
Sure.
It just means that we fit in, and we seem to feel comfortable there, and that's what we've learned to do, and I understand that. We really deal with so many external influences on our life that it is so hard to define who we are and what is it we really like. We like hunting, or we like boating, or we like this, and we have a bunch of people that like doing that, and then find out later on down the road, I really don't like this. I really would have preferred to do something else if it had ever been shown to me. So it's really difficult. I mean, I do agree with the comfort of having the camaraderie and the familiarity with people and the fitting in.
Sure.
But even sometimes that fitting in is really misappropriated.
Well, what's that one quote that they have that if you're in a crazy society, it's a good thing to be an outcast? Or I forget exactly what it is, right? But Philip says here, I think it's money. He says a good evening. And he says, I think it's money, to be honest. More people would if they didn't lose all their time chasing that carrot. So either money or what that chase of the carrot, the chase of the coin, the chase of the green, the chase of whatever, what that gets you. I think Philip's onto something. Candace says, I agree with Philip, so do I, that it might very well be that carrot at the end of the stick that we talk about all the time. And that, right, instead of being a human being, we busy ourselves being human gettings. Always need to get some bauble, some trinket, some bling that's going to make us feel better about ourselves.
That's it, and that's exactly the case, and that's what we do. We do it routinely. And again, and that carrot at the end, that desire for that carrot, the money, the house, the big house, the cars, the fancy cars, or whatever, all the women, whatever it is, all the guys, that's the ego playing us a fool, and that's what happens. We don't have our all-natural being.
And as also says here, it's just nice not having to argue or defend your point every day. Absolutism is so daunting. Let me also say quickly while we're over here, I say hello to Janile. Thank you for joining us. A wave back to you. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. So it's just nice not having to argue or defend your point every day. So I think when he says he was busy traveling and he came across a group of people that were into the same thing he was in, I still go back, Henry, to believing that's the subconscious recognition of, at a very quantum physics level, that you and the wave are one, and our ego does what it can to separate us from the wave.
Yes.
Or as Philip says, our chase of money, or as Kelly says, that want of approval, of fitting in, that keeps us, that's almost like an extended collapse of the wave function, right? It keeps us out of the recognition of the blending. Would you call it camaraderie? I think you said earlier. I think that's a quantum physics term. I think when you look at it and you study it and you realize that we're all a part of that wave, then maybe subconsciously that's why we're all trying to get along. We're all trying to fit in. How many thumbs up you can get, or social media. Maybe social media should be a wake-up call to just get people to realize that we are all connected in the quantum wave. Not philosophically, I mean scientifically, right, Henry? That we are all connected. We're in a camaraderie. Maybe that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I mean, life is, we are social species, and living a social species form of life is being with those that you associate with, that one you agree with, of course.
Sure.
But that is not the main criteria, because believe me, doing what I do is you catch a lot of different points of view and a lot of criticisms, and it's simply allowing the other one to let them have their point of view. At least I now know more about them than they know about me at that
Sure.
point, and I can understand that, and I can give and take here and there. And when they really want to start to understand, why it is I didn't get angry, or why it is I'm not sitting there defending myself, then I can explain how it is that I see it. So yes, it is. It's part of that being part of something bigger than all of us.
And John, as John just put it, he says it's all a popularity contest with an empty enrichment of careless, hateful robots. Well, I mean, I think people could argue, well, we're not robots, we're humans, but you look at autopilot some people can be. You look at how walking on eggshells some people can be, how just loaded for bear some people could be, and you think, hey, you know what? Maybe robots is a great term. Let me also say hello to Sarah. Sarah, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. Wayne, good evening. Must be to phrase being used tonight. Good evening, Wayne. Thank you very much. Wayne, we were talking about you earlier, and I made the comment. I said, well, Wayne had 20 minutes, so we build an app, right? Wayne's like doing it all together. So I asked people here in the thread, Wayne, I told them a little bit about your expertise and your brilliance, and I said, look, if we were going to put together, with Wayne's direction, an app, what would that app contain? What would it have? So I was just singing your praises here a little bit ago, Wayne, so thank you for joining us. Candace says, now that I have found myself, I'm downsizing things, and they've become less important. I absolutely think that, because that's the baggage, Henry. What did you say to me last week when you were here? You go, oh, well, you don't get to drive a U-Haul to the gravesite.
That's right.
Right? You don't get all that baggage.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
Because we've identified with all that stuff, And that is, I think, the biggest issue we deal with is we have been so, to use John's term, programmed
Sure.
to buy into the money side of things,
Okay.
to see ourselves materialistically, that we have lost the entire essence of why we're here. And it isn't until you get to the point to where you realize you don't need all the things that you've accumulated, that's when you begin to realize who you really are and what's important in your life.
Henry, let me ask you this. I wrote this term down when you said why, the essence of why you're here. Well, what if why you're here is to exercise your potential, right? What if the essence of why we're here is the full throttle exercise of human potential? I mean, and even if we don't want to discuss it philosophically, what else could it be other than if you're here, then you might as well try to run the table. And I don't mean run the table in terms of gambling and trying to get more bling and more dollars and more goals and more carrots at the end of the stick. But as you say, the essence of why you are here, maybe it's simply to exercise your unfathomable potential and not let anyone stand in the way. When Marcellus is still with us, he would use the term chop block. Not let someone else chop block you. Maybe that's it.
And I think our potential is our all-natural being. That is our potential, is the rediscovering our all-natural being. We came in the world with it, and it got buried and buried and buried. And our potential is to go back and find that natural being. And we are being diverted and distracted in every possible way to keep us from doing exactly that. That's why I think your show is so appropriately named.
Well, thank
because
you,
that's really what we're in search of. We just don't realize that's what we're in search of until it comes to a point later on in our lives that we go, wow, I really didn't need those 50 wristwatches, and I didn't need those 5 cars, and I don't need those 14 homes.
Right.
I need me.
All right, well, we know now Marcellus is still here, Henry. He says yes, so we know he's with us. Don't forget 833-GO-BU, 833-462-3968, toll-free call. Give us a holler. And the more I think about that, let me ask you quick, Henry, have you ever broken a bone? Have you ever, broken your arm or broken your leg? Ever had them put it in a cast?
Uh-huh.
Well, what if your all-natural being, when you're first born, it needs a cast, right? It's not fully functional as it is. And the cast could be not unlike your ego. So you get to the point where, if you kept the cast on for 40 years, the muscle would just shrivel. It would atrophy. There'd be nothing left. Well, what if, right? We're supposed to have an ego, just like if you're helping a bone to heal, or if you're helping a bone and muscle to mature, You'd wrap it in a cast. But what if you leave that cast on a hell of a lot longer than it was originally intended? Then your potential is thwarted. Your potential atrophies. Your potential doesn't have a chance to be the potential because you've left it wrapped in the cast of the ego, giving you a laundry list of things you should fear, why you shouldn't do it, all the different ways people will negatively critique you. Maybe that's it. Maybe your all-natural being was intended to be wrapped in a cast of the ego when you're very, very young, till you get your own balance, your own equilibrium, your own sense of self. And then we're supposed to cut that cast off so that the underlying brilliance doesn't atrophy. What say you?
Absolutely. I think that is the best analogy I've heard yet. That is a perfect way to place it. And we simply, when we're taught to leave the cast on, we're not taught to take the cast off. And that is really where we fall apart.
Well, and plus the cast will do everything it can to keep on, right?
Absolutely.
The ego isn't going to do it. When we were talking about the other day, we called it the egoic or the egoic octopus, the toxic tentacles, right? The ego does everything it can to reach in and around you.
Yep.
Yeah, but if it's not doing you any good, if you're not happy in life, and I don't want to mention the name because everyone will say that I'm piling on, but I happen to be scrolling through looking at some pictures, and there's a particular person that's had a little bit of, had a lot of trouble of late with heroin and cocaine and opioids and this and that, and they happen to show a picture, just multi-bajillion-dollar house by itself in the hills, and I'm thinking, what's the need for the heroin? What's the need for the cocaine? What's the need for the opioid? When from the outside looking in, everything you could want in life, you've got. You got the money, you got the fame, you got the glitz, you got the house, you got the coyotes howling at night. You don't have a neighbor for another mile. You get everything going on, and you think, oh, well, you know what? I think I'll do heroin, or I'll do cocaine, or I'll do opioids. And I get that, especially being an ex-drug cop from New York. I understand that. I understand addiction. And people say, oh, well, addiction's really hard. Well, yeah, it is. But those of us that are addicted to different things, we do what we can to channel our all-natural being, and we rise above it. We look fate in the eyes and go, yeah, I might be prone to that. I might be an addict of this or that, but I'm not going to let it bring me down. What happens, do you think, Henry, to the folks that don't have that conversation with the mirror, that don't square their shoulders with fate, and allow the opioids or the cocaine or the heroin or the alcohol or the shopping or the sex, whatever it is,
yes,
it allows them to bring them down?
This is the perfect example of what happens. They know they're empty. I mean, that's the whole problem with all of this stuff. So long as you keep satiating ego, it's at your expense because you're empty. You can't find it anywhere else. You're still looking for yourself. You're looking in the mirror and you see nothing but all the stuff that you've got that you know that you just simply can't seem to identify with. It doesn't make you happy. It's not enough for ego. So ego pushes you to do other stuff. So the drugs and the sex and everything else that it can get you involved in, it does. And then we're supposed to feel sorry for these people. And I maybe I'm taking on more of your attributes, but I simply can't.
Careful, brother.
I know.
You know what I mean? Careful, brother. You don't want to take on my attributes because I'll say all the time, look, given here's, let me just say this, since it's just a handful, it's just a handful of us hanging out here tonight. So I'll get to say this. People talk all the time, and I only get in trouble. I can imagine Sue right now, Henry, giving me the side eye going, please don't say that. But because of the history of suicides in my family, right? Uh-huh. A first cousin, a best friend, a father, because of the history of suicides. And I think early on the doctor's going, look, you just continue to put yourself in some pretty risky situations. It's clear you have a death wish, right? So then I look at people and they go, oh, well, he had 5 suicide attempts. No, you didn't. You had 5 cries for help. Because it's been my experience, you want to take your own life, you're pretty good at doing it right off the bat.
Right.
Right? And then it causes me to think, what happens to the human mind that it turns a blind eye and a deaf ear to itself? What happens in that moment when all the voices in your head are calling for it? What happens to that one lone voice of dissent? What happens to the one no vote? What happens to that one little glimmer that says, this is craziness? I've been gifted with a human brain. and I'm going to exercise that potential. I'm going to turn to that grit and pull it off. What happens when we have to look outside of ourselves to handle that kind of depression?
You know, again, that's your all natural being. That's the voice you're hearing. It's crying out to say, wait a minute, this is not the direction I want to go. This is not who I am. This is not what I'm about. And they're looking for who they are. And yes, maybe they have to step outside of themselves to try to amplify that voice enough, or to get somebody else to listen to it to try to help them through it. But the bottom line is that's your all natural being finally stepping out to become visible to you, the one in the mirror.
Good point. And then that's what, and then sometimes we've turned our back on that voice to such a degree that we don't even recognize that still small voice. We don't even recognize that whisper anymore. And in the moment when we need it the most, in the moment when we need it to be able to stand and square our shoulders, to out-brutal the brutal that fate deals in its cut and shuffle, we turn and that voice is gone. So let me ask you this then. If we're fairly confident that it's the voice, and we all still have it, if you're here and you're alive, you have that voice. What do we do to crank up the volume? You know, I got this board here, and if I wanted to, I could crank up, the volume. Look at that. I can crank up the volume on the gain. What do you think we could do to crank up that still small voice so that in those moments where we feel like everything and everybody has turned their backs on us, what can we do, Henry, to crank up that volume so that we can finally not only hear, but reignite the relationship with that voice, that wit, that wisdom that I talk about all the time in the open?
Strip away that voice, suppress that, muffle that voice, that muzzle it. Strip away the ideas that materialism is the ideal way to go. The things that we need, the things that we want.
Okay.
That's part of what we have to really look at. And if the more we strip this stuff away, then the louder that voice comes, the more we become happier. I mean, again, I believe we are all happy inside. It's just that we've surrounded ourselves with so much unhappiness, we can't see it anymore. So as we strip it away, we increase the volume. You like the studio. The more you strip away the things that muffle the sound, the more the echo comes in, and the more you can hear, and the louder that voice gets.
Let me say good evening to Zoe. Zoe, thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. We're talking about your true potential. We're talking about how some of us settle for it being muffled. Some of us settle for it being derailed, but that ultimately everything you've ever needed, you've always had. And to exercise that sense of grit in the moment. That's what we're kicking around this evening. And we're also talking, and I hope Wayne is still here, if people have ideas and they go, what would be some cool things that you could put inside of an app for an Android or an iPhone, we'd be all over getting your suggestions as to exactly what you'd like to see, what those could be. That's the two things that we're talking about this evening. So, Henry, three things we're talking about. Please tell us a little bit about what's going on. I've been checking out Transitions Radio. As you just launched the page yesterday, and I'll have you type it if you would, put it here in the thread. I put up a little something over on my personal page to get people to go, but how's that going? Tell us all about it. Tell us, what the last 24 hours has been like.
Well, let's put it this way. It's exciting. If you're the successful disc jockey and radio host that you are, this is exciting. Well, I'm on the other side of that thing, so it's really nerve-wracking for me, trying to really get it going. I mean, I'm good at answering questions, but when you've got to stand up there and not do a Japanese movie where the mouths go and the words are all different, it's different when you have to be on the other side of that microphone thinking of what you got to say, and then making sense of it and making it so that people will understand it and realize that I'm not trying to throw it out at people, just offering it for people to pick up and understand. So it's a bit nerve-wracking that it is getting as much exposure at the moment as it is. I mean, I've obligated myself to get things rocking and get things live rather than the recorded stuff that I've got going right now. And, it's coming like real close. And Henry's going, okay, where's that U-Haul?
No. And you're so, to watch you in public, that'll be the thing, that as soon as you realize in terms of doing the radio or all the years that I've done TV, all those live television appearances that I've done, just as soon as you realize that the key to it is just to be you, right? That's what family members will call and say, well, why do you have to be so self-deprecating? Why do you say all the time you can't spell Brian without the I in idiot? Oh, because I got tired of saying you can't spell Brian without the N in nuts, right? So if you're just yourself, and then the key becomes, and maybe this is good for everyone listening, whether you're ever going to do radio or internet or TV or you're going to do anything, just be yourself. And the people that dig you and want to hang with you, you'll find yourself, you dig them and you want to hang with them. So it becomes one big family. And if you're not, right, I think I said in the opening that, there's a warning. Right? This show is an acquired taste. If you're comfortable being a couch potato, if you're comfortable just packing it in, if you're comfortable, where's my white flag? If you're comfortable waving the white flag, look, I don't even know where it is now. If you're comfortable waving the white flag in life, you're not going to dig this show. We're not going to hang out. So why even bother? Right? So for you, I've watched you in public. I see you interact with people. So you're going to do great. So now, not only do you have Transitions Radio here on Facebook so people can kind of like log in and see what you're doing, but then over on radio, or IPM Nation, actually, IPMNation.com/live4, you have 24 hours of programming. That's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's kind of fun. I mean, it really is. It's. I love going in, and it's constantly changed, constantly updated. A large part of that is because I tend to make shifts and change and adapt as I continue down my own path of realization, and so I have to make it so that it's adaptable for everyone to understand the paths they walk on aren't theirs, and that if they want to walk on their path, they simply have to step off the one they're on and into the virgin snow, and there's the footprint, and you've created your own path. So, yeah, it is fun. It's a great experience, and so putting the thoughts out there, and please, anybody that goes to the sites, and don't hesitate to make comments and send them to me, because like I said, it's not static. This is a constantly changing thing,
right.
Because we have to constantly change, and every time we reach a certain level, it's time to change again. John mentioned manufacturing. We used to do process improvement. So you find the bottleneck, you fix the bottleneck, and that creates a bottleneck someplace else, and you fix that bottleneck, and all of a sudden you do enough of those, and you're back where your first bottleneck was. It's a constant change. That's the only thing consistent in our life is change.
And I think, Henry, that's why when I first started to write about the labyrinth of life, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the pivots, the swerves, right? No dead ends, only cul-de-sacs, maybe a blind alley from time to time. But that's the beauty of life, is that ultimately you don't know where it's going to end up. But you do know that you have the courage. Well, all baloney aside, you have the courage right now. May not have used it, may be dormant, but it's not dead. But you have the courage, you have the bravery to stand and square your shoulders to any attempt at fate to deal you the cut and shuffle. And you have the ability right now within you to out-brutal the brutal. Henry, thank you very much for putting that up there. HenryGNoel.com, if you want to go over and check out the website as well. And then also transitional radio. Is it, Henry, do you have both? Is it traditional radio and transitional radio, or is that first one a typo?
That's supposed to be, it's transitional.
Oh, transitional, okay.
The second time.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so transitional radio, Henry G. Noel, IPMNation.com/live4, and you'll be able to catch up and see everything else that's going on with Henry. And he's just a wealth of information. He's been doing this a while, and he never really brags about himself whenever he's on, but the stuff he knows would just stagger you. So sometime, Henry, we have to, and maybe you'll talk about it a little bit in some of your shows or in some of your posts, but people should know of some of the things that you've studied, right? Like, you just weren't hanging out at a bus stop eating a package of pistachios and then one day decided, oh, this is what I'll rant about. This is what I'll rave about. You put a lot of energy and effort into studying all over the globe some of the things that you are looking forward to sharing with people. So I'll look forward to having you back on at a time where we can kind of go through your resume, if you will.
Oh, that would be fun. I'd love it. Thank you.
You're more than welcome, brother. All right, we're going to let you go here, and then we're going to spend a couple more minutes. If anyone has any ideas, please remember to stop on over to Henry G. Noel, Henry, G is in George, Noel, Noel.com. Give him some suggestions. He'd love to hear about the things that you want to talk about as well. Make sure you stop on over to his website. Leave him a text or leave him a note and catch up with him is there. Henry, before I let you go, thank you so very much again for calling in and hanging out with us and for being here in the studio last week. I wish you were here for another week. Well, we got a lot accomplished. We have a lot more to do, but I wish you were here for another week. But that said, I wish you well in your travels, and hopefully you can call back in sometime in the next couple of days. You know what we ought to do, and this is kind of like a help to me, Henry, if you don't mind. Maybe tomorrow we could work on importing, because I always want to do it. I've never perfected it yet, but I want to be able to import video. So if people are here and they go, oh, I'd like to see myself on All Natural Being, or I'd like to see myself in a split box next to Brian, right? I'd like to be a show. So maybe what we could do tomorrow is we'll see if you and I can work it out so that you could be sharing the screen with me. And that will give me a great opportunity to test out everything with Wirecast. So if you're not too busy tomorrow night, if you and Rita don't have plans, maybe that's something we could, you could do a live test with me if you'd be so kind.
Sure. Oh, I would love to. Yeah, I should be around pretty much all morning. So yeah, I think that'd be fun.
That sounds great. And then we'll practice with it and see if we can turn it in time for tomorrow evening. All right, Henry, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we let you go?
Yeah, I would love to. I just want to thank everybody. You guys have been just a treasure and a half, and thank you so much for putting up with me. And I really do enjoy it. I really respect your comments. You guys are sharp, really, really sharp, and I'd love to sit down, God willing, one-on-one with every one of you. So please don't hesitate to communicate. Send whatever you need, and I'd love to hear from y'all. And again, thank you. And Brian, you are a remarkable man. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother. I look forward to it, and we'll catch up tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Henry Noel. You can check him out at henrygnoel.com.
Hasta luego, everybody.
Hasta luego. Good night, my friend. Have a great one. Tell Rita we said good night as well.
You too. Will do.
Okay. Bye now. He said, John says Facebook Live has that option. Great. So then maybe it's not all that big a deal. I think Facebook Live for us, John, I believe is in Wirecast, but we'll look into that tomorrow for sure. And it's nice. And Henry, if you're still listening, thank you so very much for being my little guinea pig, my petri dish, whatever it is that we're going to test these things out. That'd be great to have you so that we can walk through that, and then maybe try it tomorrow night. You were the first in-studio guest that I had, so maybe we can try that way as well. Henry, thank you so much. And Candace said, enjoyed it, Henry. You're awesome. Yes, he is. I can personally attest to that, Candace. If you get a chance to ever hang with Henry, whether it's in person or maybe even if we learn, as John said, we can learn how to do this Facebook Live thing here. You get to share a screen with him. And his smile, when people say, oh, well, when you're on camera, it really intensifies your smile. This guy's got a smile. Whether the camera's on or off, he's always the same way. So it's an absolute pleasure to hang out with him. All right, so this evening, here's what we'd like to be able to talk about. Don't forget, you can reach us at 833-462-3968. If you have any suggestions, because in working with Wayne and kicking it around with Henry, any of the things, thank you for the cool suggestions tonight about what we could include in the app. And I'd really like to work on that over the next week or so that when the app launches, you're like, oh, wow, that was absolutely fantastic. It's everything that we had hoped the All Natural Being app would be. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. We're going to go ahead and get out of here until tomorrow evening. Remember, if you get a chance, little visual reminder, go be you. And if you're surrounded by people in your life that aren't going to be thrilled about that mantra, that will do anything they can to keep you from being you, then I got to ask, why are they in your life in the first place? And you might go, well, bro, they've been in my life for all this time, this and that, and everything else. Great. Well, then let's not keep them in the inner circle anymore. Right? If they're not driving your bandwagon, if they're not one of your biggest fans, if they're not one of your best friends, if they're not wanting your heart's highest priority, top of your list, if they're not wanting your primal scream front and center in their life, because maybe they're worried that your primal scream will drown out their primal scream, why are they in the inner circle? That's what you got to ask yourself. Go ahead and be the badass you already are. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being.
IPMNation.com.